Welcome to another Trump deck teachings, this time featuring Paladin, specifically N'Zoth Paladin. This is a very heavy control deck. It tries to get to the late game and play its really big death rattle minions. You'll notice that there's only 3 and there's no way to get more of them. There's Cairn, there's Sylvanas, and there's Tyrion Fordring. So with only 3, one might ask, why am I not putting in more death rattle minions such as Infested Tauren, or Harvest Golem, or Corrupted Healbot? Well, the answer is, if you get even one of those with N'Zoth, you're already getting a lot of value. If you get 2 of them, that's really, really good. And if you get all 3, well, you pretty much win against any deck that doesn't have huge clear at the end. N'Zoth is that inevitability that a control deck needed to secure the game. The kit for a N'Zoth Paladin is all intended to make sure that you can stay until the late game. So it runs Equality Pyromancer, with which you can clear the board if you cast both. Of course, you have the Area of Effect Consecration. Consecration Equality also clears the board. You have Pyromancer with a few cheap spells like Humility, or perhaps Forbidden Healing in a pinch, or the Coin, to clear a lot of guys with the Whirlwind effect. And then you just draw cards with Acolyte of Pain and Sullen Vigil. True Silver is just a good card to clear off minions as well. The Stampeding Kodo combos really well with Peacekeeper and Humility in order to be a hard kill on anything. And Justicar, Trueheart, Ragnaros, and Ragnaros are there to make sure if you do make it into the late game that you have a huge advantage. The deck is nice because if you do manage to stabilize with some kind of board clear, such as Equality Pyro or Equality Consecration, you can Forbidden Healing for a turn, and then say on turn 8 you heal for 16, on turn 10 you heal for 20. So this is one of the decks which can actually heal you. Currently healing is very hard to come by in the standard metagame. And of course Ragnaros Lightlord, if you manage to play him on 8, it's very difficult for a aggro deck which is running out of steam to get past him.
You asked for it.
I will fight with honor.
The early game mulligan is pretty much looking for Aldor Peacekeeper, a Doomsayer, and Wild Pyromancer. And against control decks, you can search for Acolyte of Pain and True Silver. True Silver is okay to keep against aggro if you have something else, I think. Doomsayer, a very popular card in control decks nowadays. You simply play it in response to basically any play the opponent makes. This is a slow turn too by the Mage, which means that the Mage might be a Freeze Mage. If the Mage is a Freeze Mage, this is a matchup I hadn't expected to get since I haven't seen it for a while. But you can beat the Freeze Mage because you have 40 points of healing in Forbidden Healing, and you have the repeatable healing of Ragnaros Lightlord, and the repeatable threat of Ragnaros the Firelord. As well as N'Zoth the Corruptor is an inevitable win. Thing to watch out for, as with most opponents who can clear off Sylvanas and have Doomsayer in the deck, be careful of playing Sylvanas and then they do something like Fireball and Doomsayer, which causes you to steal the Doomsayer and then your own board will blow up.
What to do?
And Twilight Drake indicates that it may be more of a Reno Mage.
Follow the rule.
That card is a very annoying threat. I'm actually going to play the Doomsayer. If I play the Aldor Peacekeeper, and this is a common theme, if you play the Aldor Peacekeeper and you have guys out, your button becomes really bad because their minion just starts clearing your guys. So I will go ahead and Doomsay. One of the cool things about Doomsayer is that if you have Solemn Vigil, when the Doomsayer explodes, you can Solemn Vigil for the entire board. So if I had Solemn Vigil and if the Doomsayer went off, I would draw 2 cards for 0 mana. The Justicar Trueheart is a nice inevitable has a nice kind of minion for inevitability. You will win eventually against control decks if you just press the button a lot and you have just a card your heart out. That said, it is a slow play the turn you play him. So we'll go ahead and start off with Cairn. And currently this 410 is still annoying. I don't want it to simply kill just a card True Heart and still live. With this deck, you can be a little more liberal with floating mana. It's tough to... This is an answer-based deck, so it is difficult to find the absolute best answer each time. For example, the best answer would be Humility plus Kodo Drake. But you often don't get the exact answer that you require. Here an Elder and a Hero Power seems good enough, as that card is a must-kill. And it helps that survive. One of the things you can do with just a card True Heart is play her on turn 10. You can press the button first, summon a 1/1 Silverhand Recruit, play the just a card True Heart, your Hero Power is replaced with the summon 2 1/1 Silverhand Recruits, and then you can press the button again, making use of 2 Hero Powers with just a card True Heart. You can do that with any class, but it's especially good in Paladin.
Do you have the artifact? Time runs out on me.
Let's start the... Well, or I could play Ragnaros Lightlord. Healing myself for 8 isn't bad. Healing Cairn for 8 is also not bad. I'll do that. This is more... The Just a Card True Heart is more of a play that you make when you've kind of secured things. Things are going a little bit better. Even though that is a heavy control deck, I'm feeling some amount of pressure. And also healing that was just nice because it prevents the Fire Blast from getting Cairn. Ragnaros has saved Cairn from the brink of death.
I wonder.
I serve the Fire Lord. Are upon us.
Consecration, Harrison. Okay. Looks like I will be carrying out the Just a Card True Heart trick. Probably my next turn play. Now that I've gotten most of the major threats that I have onto the board, I can play Just a Card True Heart behind that and then resupply threats with reinforcements. Always nice to have the security of a Pyro Equality clear behind you as well. Even though the Just a Card True Heart doesn't get much done immediately, this deck will often go to fatigue. So the amount of times, the length of time where you're hitting this button repeatedly will eventually wear your opponent out. Along this line of the concept of going into the fatigue, it is possible that this game goes into fatigue as I scroll over these cards, these decks, and it looks like we still have a lot of cards in. It is unfortunate to use a hero power so that the Acolyte of Pain can draw an additional card, but this is not too big of a deal. Against certain decks, you may even want to encourage them to draw cards, and you may want to avoid playing Acolyte of Pain and Solemn Vigil in order to win the fatigue battle. Tyrion or Ragnaros. This is actually a pretty good point as well that I may have neglected to mention otherwise. It is good to bait out against classes that can transform your death rattles with cards like Ragnaros the Fire Lord and Ragnaros the Light Lord, because if your Tyrion gets hexed or polymorphed, then you cannot bring it back with N'Zoth the Corruptor. And here's another benefit of having that Justicar Trueheart active. It is difficult for opponents to deal with both a lot of guys and a big guy. You can usually deal with a big guy or you can deal with a lot of guys, but having both is difficult, so that's a good setup to try to aim for. This mage runs Arcane Explosion. That's unusual.
Let's make magic.
Put your faith in the light. You want it? I got it.
With all of the singletons that the mage has played, as well as playing unusual cards such as Arcane Explosion, it is an easy assumption to make that he is playing Reno Jackson. This deck doesn't care much about Reno Jackson because it is a heavy control deck. It's going to be playing for the long game, so whatever your opponent uses to armor up or heal is not that important. That also is why this deck is quite possibly quite strong against warriors. Random note, if this weren't frozen, you can sometimes look for lethal with Tyrion Fordring by himself, because if you kill off your own Tyrion Fordring, you can instantly use the Ashbringer with a card like Pyro Equality. Unfortunately, this is frozen.
For justice. Speak to me. Reporting for duty. You require my assistance. Aha!
It would again be nice to have a coda, to Humility Coda the Archmage Antonidas. Unfortunately, it's not in the cards. Pyro Consecration and hitting Archmage Antonidas actually will work. It will also draw a card. That seems okay.
Justice.
It is that or hitting him in the face, and then playing the Quality Consecration. I'm going to do that instead.
Reporting for duty.
If I had certain other cards instead, such as Forbidden Healing, I may have been more willing to hit the Antonidas. And if I had, well, looks like the opponent did not have Reno Jackson.
Well played.
Well played. Don't test me.
And there's Tyrion's power. He can deal up to 11 a turn. Impressive. But even if I hadn't won right there and he had played Reno, it would have been easy to continue playing with the hero power and pressing the button a lot, which is the main win condition against control. That or N'Zoth.
For Doomhammer, I will fight with honor.
A card like Acolyte of Pain is generally too slow to keep against a potentially aggressive deck. An Equality Pyromancer is sometimes worth keeping if you have both, but with only one, it's generally not worth keeping against an aggressive deck either. You're looking for Doomsayer and Wild Pyromancer. And Aldor and True Silver.
Flag rule.
It seems like with this hand, it may be possible to go for a very early board clear, which may be necessary against this opponent. Sometimes the Wild Pyromancer is too valuable to play because you need it with the Equality. In this case, though, I drew a second one, so I'm going to be willing to throw the first one out there. The opponent is overloaded for quite a bit the next turn, can only play 2. It is quite tempting to save the Pyro Equality and not only hit this. You can use the Humility to subtract 2 from that for now.
Reporting for duty.
one of the things about playing this deck is having patience with this Pyro Equality combo. If you're only getting hit for 3 or 5 a turn, it's not that bad. You can even continue to delay if you're very ambitious, with a play such as Consecration and then hitting the totem. Then there's only one in the way, and he has to commit even more. It is often a question of how far you can push the greed before you die with this deck. Here, because I'm expecting him to be able to play something big, such as Faceless, or Feral Spirit, or even just 2 cards, they can be expected to get more with the Pyro Equality. And using it too early is a death sentence, but also using it too late is a death sentence. So it's difficult to find the right timing. Worth mentioning is there are some times where you don't have to lose the Pyro. For example, it is possible to play Equality first there, and then play Pyro, and then play Coin, and then also Hero Power with that, which was a play that was worth considering.
For justice.
It's often good to play the Doomsayer in the mid-late game just to do something called buying a turn. If the opponent were to play a 4-mana 7/7 right now, then I would have no answer for it. But if I can lead off with a strong play, then I have initiative, which means I get my thing on the board first. You'll sometimes feel silly playing Doomsayer on a blank board position, or even on a neutral board position, but you'll find that buying a turn is really good in this deck. And it even drew a Hex there because it was very important for him to keep on tempo.
Follow the rule. Reporting for duty.
So the cards that you want to see when you've almost stabilized, but not quite, are that Forbidden Healing or Ragnaros Lightlord.
The light protects me.
The opponent is out of cards, but with a Rockbiter weapon, they still have lethal, if they happen to draw it. Or even, it's very close.
Warning.
So I do not want to take even 1 damage because I would go down to 9, and 2 plus 2 plus Lava Burst is 5. It is important to be able to know how much people can burst you for and then stay just barely out of the clutches clutches. It's important for all decks, but this deck has a lot of healing with it, so, and it's a control deck, so you think about that a bit more often.
It's getting hot in here.
So this is all on drawing or Forbidden Healing or Ragnaros Lightlord at this point. And that's Ragnaros Lightlord. A really good card when stabilizing, or when nearly stabilized. It's good for 2 reasons. It both stabilizes you and poses a big threat, so you don't even have to be on the stabilization track for it to be good. It's a threat that's so big that the opponents have to deal with it. In fact, you could have cleared it with these 2 cards and this. But not too bad to just hit the face as well. In this case, I'm very keen to draw more cards. He's got 14 damage, I'll be at 17. So all he needs is 3 damage to win.
Welcome to the grand tournament, champion.
Reporting for duty.
It was unfortunate that he got a Flame Tongue, but he also had Ardent Squire, so it's a knife's edge here.
I thank you.
Wow. And there you have a typical match against, I'd say, the Shaman in general. But the key card to draw there was definitely Forbidden Healing. It was really good to draw this, and it would have been enough if there weren't the Flame Time. The Hunter is not the most aggressive of decks these times, but this will probably serve for the against a minion-based aggressive deck demonstration. So Doomsayer is really, really good. You're looking for Doomsayer, Wild Pyro, Aldor, and True Silver Champion. And with two of them, that's looking pretty good. The Doomsayer buys you a really critical turn against anything aggressive. So he'll probably play 2 mana 3/2, and I'll play Doomsayer, and then it might kill his turn 2 play and block his turn 3 play.
It's getting hot in here.
And that gives you so much time to do what you want. I'll probably play the Pyromancer on turn 3. Pyromancer is good with certain cards for combination, but against a minion-based deck, it can just be played as a 3/2. You took a deadly shot on it. That I suppose is okay.
Speak to me. To my side.
It's really good to play the Acolyte on 3 and then lead into Aldor with it to guarantee more draws. This is also an excellent Aldor target, as well as developing a 3/3 on the board. Things are going at a nice pace so far. Probably the main problem with this hand is it doesn't have the Consecration or the Equality. But there is at least a Pyro with some spells, so that's a pseudo Consecration at the very least. Yeah, and a Consecration, nice. So I'll play the Coin Sylvanas because it is the faster card than Cairn. The opponent can trade off 3 of these into Sylvanas, but that would be a good result for me. So he has to use a card and I get a card. That was the best card for me. This deck often catches on 8 mana because there's 3 8-mana cards. So it's nice when you have the coin to consider using it for an 8-drop against an aggressive deck. Against a deck that might be aggressive, it's probably not appropriate. So, given that things have gone really smoothly so far, it looks like this should be a fairly straightforward victory once I drop one of these 8-drops. Play the Kodo to eat one of these.
For honor.
Have the Forbidden Healing to come back from any health deficit. Nice and smooth sailing. I guess one small note, playing the Ragnaros against a deck that's been aggressive to you is good. And if you do play Ragnaros, try to make sure that the cards that you want to heal aren't in the way. Although in this case, Consecration is actually better. These two into that, and then playing Ragnaros would have been pretty good, and then this to face that it can't hit the Ragnaros. But I will do the Consecration, and I suppose a Forbidden Healing. Or perhaps even better is just to trade and... Oh, that's even better. And then play the Ragnaros. And then hope that the Spit doesn't... The Spit will sometimes get in the way. The most he can do is call the Wild for 5+8, so this is fun. So as you can see, unfortunately, whenever your minions get wounded a little bit, the Ragnaros, the Light Lord, has a chance of healing them. But in this case, it was fine, since there's no way for him to achieve lethal. Other than a very lucky series of quick shot. I guess it would have to be exactly quick shot kill command.